What we're calling for is a petition to repeal the First Amendment. Just get rid of it. Blow it up. Get rid of it.
I think this is fantastic.
Okay.
I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
She loves the idea. Strong new reaction to a viral video of students at Yale University denouncing the First Amendment. This is what happened when a filmmaker asked students to sign a mock petition that would abolish their right to free speech. Other students and faculty expressing sadness and disbelief when they saw this video. In an email, freshman Grant Richardson told FoxNews.com, quote, "It is rather embarrassing to think Yaleys could not see the irony that they were petitioning away their right to petition. It is mortifying to think that family, friends, and future employers could equate such behaviors to Yale and, by extension, to me. I can only hope that my fellow students were answering in jest." Joined now by Sterling Beard, Editor-in-Chief for Campus Reform. Sterling, welcome. Good morning. Good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Pretty disturbing stuff, huh?
Absolutely, and it is unfortunate, as Mr. Richardson said, that so many students appeared not to see the irony in petitioning away their own right to petition. It's the sort of problem that we see every day at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform. Students do not understand their basic rights as American citizens. They don't understand how civics work anymore. This is the sort of thing that is going to be a real problem for the country, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because remember, this is Yale University. This is not some no-name college. This is an elite Ivy League institution. This is where future presidents and Supreme Court justices are educated. And the fact that this filmmaker can go out and find dozens of Yale students who are willing to get rid of one of their most fundamental rights is an extremely disturbing development.
Yeah, and it's disturbing that there doesn't seem to be, a reverence for free speech, and that would include people who disagree with you. And that's the heart of this. That's, I think, where some of the enthusiasm lies from some of these students. When you look at the debate over Halloween costumes and that some of them might be offensive, and the teachers who actually spoke up about that and said, hey, we're a little thin-skinned here. We need to, kind of be able to roll with things a little bit more easily. They weren't willing to roll with anything, and those two people are not teaching anymore at Yale. So, I mean, this goes back to a desire to basically eliminate one whole side of any conversation, does it not?
Well, it absolutely does, but that's because they don't have that reference. They don't really understand on a basic level why freedom of speech is important, or they may have heard First Amendment to the Constitution and may not have even connected that to freedom of speech. That's how poorly millennials can often understand their own rights as American citizens, because we live in the world now of microaggressions. We live in the world now where somebody's feelings can trump rights. That's what you saw happen with the Christakises at Yale when they dared to stand up for free speech or freedom of expression. Again, the idea that perhaps students should not be wearing offensive Halloween costumes. And what happened? They were marauded. They were absolutely vilified. You had that viral video where a student was screaming at Mr. Christakis, telling him that his job was not about creating a community of learning at Yale. It was about creating a safe space. So that's the kind of attitude that so many students have. And unfortunately, there aren't enough students like Mr. Richardson who can stand up and say, this is wrong, that we shouldn't be doing this. They don't even, students like him, they don't even constitute a majority, let alone a silent one.
Well, you can see where that might be challenging when you take a look at a quote from a Yale law professor, Bruce Ackerman. He says, when he talks about this video and responds to it, he says, it's a sad commentary on the present state of public opinion, but it does not remotely pose the same danger as the support of all Republican candidates, with the exception of Rand Paul, for President Obama's unilateral war against ISIS in plain violation of the Constitution. What do you think?
Well, he is right that it is a sad commentary on public opinion, but it seems that part of his response misses the thread a little bit. I was not aware that Yale was extremely heavily involved in the fight against ISIS. But, how relevant is it really when we talk to go from talking about college students not understanding the First Amendment to saying, well, what about Barack Obama's unilateral war on ISIS? Or what about, supporting any Republican presidential candidate but Rand Paul. That's like saying, yes,
yeah.
you know, ISIS and terrorism are important, but what about global warming? It's not even really the same subject. They aren't related.
From a law professor, it's an interesting line of argument to not answer the question that was asked and to, you know, basically say, yeah, but it's not so bad to eliminate your freedom of speech. What's really bad would be this. And he launches into his explanation of that. I also want to get your thoughts on something that we talked about earlier here this week, which is a placemat that's being sent home with some Harvard students, which gives them some guidance on how to talk about the difficult issues that have been in the news lately that may come up while they're home the holidays. What did you think about that, Sterling?
Well, the placemat itself was patently absurd. You know, this is what was put out by the Harvard Office of, I believe it was Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity, or what have you, and the Freshman Dean's Office, in order to create a framework so that students would have a way to discuss, you know, thorny issues with their family at home, and that consisted of nothing more than straw man questions and extremely canned arguments, and not even good arguments for necessarily. For example, when it came to removing the title of Master at Harvard, you know, the placemat said that the fact that the title Master in that context had nothing to do with slavery or with, you know, Jim Crow or racism or anything was not relevant. Well, that's silliness. As a Harvard Crimson columnist Idris Kaloun pointed out, anything can be gotten rid of if, you know, if historical relevance is not an argument.
All right. Sterling, thank you very much. Nice to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me.